Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. If you do not know me, my name is Ursula, and I'm just a Black girl trying to get my shift together. Today is going to be very interesting. There we go. So, have y'all ever heard of that or seen that t-shirt that says, "Never mind, I'll do it," signed Black woman? That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about strong Black women and just being able to do everything and put the world on our backs, whether if it's work, our kids. But today we're going to talk about relationships and how we put all this relationship on our back. And we'll talk about struggle love and how that looks. We're going to talk about perfectionism. How does that look? So if you know someone or if you are that person, I want you to share this video with at least 2 of your friends. But before we do that, let's get to this.
This for the queens, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and Buddha walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kissed goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti, black girl magic, melanin popping, whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, dog.
All right. So, again, we're going to talk about hyper independence, talking about Black women, how we can be strong, but at times we can be lonely, and is how we battle with the struggle love. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, we're going to get into it. I have a returning guest. She may look extremely familiar to a lot of you all. Her name is Ceria Yvonne. She is a therapist. She's a relationship coach and a trauma expert. So before we get into that, if you're listening on the audio, please give your girl a 5-star review. It would be so lovely and greatly appreciated. And make sure you like and subscribe. And let's comment. Let's have a conversation. You all are the other guest on this show. So I definitely would love to hear from you all. So I'm going to bring Sarita out of the waiting room. Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm wonderful. I'm excited to be here with you, as
Thank
always.
you. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you very well.
Awesome. So everyone, as you know, this is Sarita Yvonne. She should be a familiar face. Don't look now, but I will put links in the description so you can see some of the videos that we've done together. But Sarita, do you mind telling everyone who you are for people who have not met you before?
Well, I am the wonderful Ceria Yvonne. I am a relationship trauma expert. I am an unapologetic trauma coach, and I'm really a phenomenal human being and a retired superwoman. And my superpower is really helping people to heal from trauma, because my life's purpose and my life's work has been to heal myself.
I love that part, the life's work.
Yes, it still continues.
I was just about to say that. You know, I always mention this conversation you and I had when I was like, "Oh, I'm healed." You were like, "Girl."
It's always some new things to uncover and discover, to learn, and we'll talk more about how relationships in particular can be very triggering. They are mirrors. They will show you exactly who you are.
Ooh, this is, I listened to that last night. I forgot who it was, But it doesn't matter. But anyways, they said the same thing. Like, you could tell a person how they feel about themselves. Look at the relationship that they're in.
Yeah.
So
Yes, I wouldn't have said it exactly like that.
that's how they said it. I'm just
I didn't
repeating
look
what
at
they
it,
said.
but yes, it's true. Our relationships are a reflection of the relationship that we're having with ourselves.
Hmm. So, what motivated you with this topic that we're going to talk about today? What was your motivation?
That's a great question. So we might as well get into it.
Let's get into it.
My motivation to talk about really what it means to be strong and stressed, or strong and lonely, or just a strong, independent woman is that so many superwomen, particularly Black women, we are taught, we are expected, and we are conditioned to believe that we must be strong at all costs, that we must endure, that we must be self reliant. And this strength, this ability to handle things, which we do at a cost, um, it absolutely interferes with our relationships, because the having to navigate the world, making things happen, if you need, want, or can move mountains, that takes a particular skill set. Now, see, relationships, they require something totally different. And so the motivation has come from me really beginning to, not beginning, but studying and understanding how our strength and the strong Black woman syndrome and our belief in self reliance, how it's showing up in everyday lives, and really how it's contributing to toxic relationship dynamics.
Mm. So, speaking of the contribution, let's talk about it and how it shows up, how it can look. Because I know with all the research you've done, I know we're going to get right into it. So, let's talk about the reluctance to ask for help.
Mm.
Um, I know there's been times where, not times, several times where it would kill me to ask for help. Even though I needed it, something in me, in the back of my head, I felt like it made me a weak person to ask for help. And yeah, asking for it, I would just rather have thugged through it. We talked about that before. So, what are some insights on that? And how does it show up? How does that look to you?
That's a good question, because the truth is that superwomen are taught that vulnerability and relying on other people, dependency, is weakness. Now, so many, if there are any superwomen who are live watching this, put super in the chat if this has been part of your story or your life theme, or really if you know that you have a cape. Because the idea that, and let me just go back, there's nothing wrong with being strong. We're not here talking about hyper independence to say that this is a defect, because absolutely being strong has helped us to survive in many ways. Being strong has helped us to even succeed despite our limitations and our obstacles. The reason why we're talking about strong today in this capacity is to understand, one, how it creates undue pressure, how we eliminate our support systems. We cut
Mm.
ourselves off from having the relationships and the intimacy that we actually desire. Because you can't have vulnerability and intimacy and being strong. You can see how that creates confusion in the mind.
That seems
It's
like it's a lot of oil and water. It just won't congeal. It just won't.
That's absolutely, in the world of psychology, we call it cognitive dissonance, where you're trying to hold two competing beliefs at the same time. And
Mm-hmm.
we don't know that we're doing it because we're switching in and out of roles and what we think. And we are, I'm trying not to use all my cognitive terms, but basically we are doing our best to navigate all of the expectations that are put upon us. And this is why we're burnt out and exhausted and overwhelmed.
Which is the title, Strong and Stressed.
Yes. Yes.
Before we go on, can you turn your volume up just a little, if possible?
On my mic? Oh,
Uh-huh.
okay. Well, let me move it closer because I thought it was too loud. Okay.
No, not at all. Actually, I can
Okay.
hear you,
What
but
about here?
that's perfect because I'm
Okay.
going to turn it into audio. So I want to
Yeah.
make sure it's.
Okay.
So what's the genesis of this?
The
The
hyper independence?
Yeah, the hyper independence and the reluctance to ask for help and wanting to take on so much in relationships to the point that we are burnt out, stressed out. See
It's
the look on your face.
it's the cape. It is. So if we are talking about Black women specifically, which this is a fundamental part of our identity,
Mm-hmm.
there is an expectation that we inherit. It's passed down that you are made to be strong. So the genesis is trauma.
Mm.
And that trauma is inherited because we inherited from mothers and from parents and caregivers who wanted us to be able to navigate this hostile is the best word that I can use, is that
Mm-hmm.
for us this environment is hostile. Is there's a lot of things that as a Black woman we have to navigate, that we have to endure, we have to be strong through. There's an expectation for us to succeed and for us to put the culture and a family and a community on our back. Is there not?
Mm.
And in many households, there's an expectation of the woman to be the head of the household, to be the leader, to make the decisions, to make things happen, which we can talk about later, which is why they call us masculine. And so
Oh.
the genesis is it is trauma. And there's an aspect that may not be popular and can be very uncomfortable, and that's mother wounds, because we have mothers who were very strong and who endured a whole lot and who were very emotionally available. Excuse me, very much emotionally unavailable. We
Okay, I
wish.
was gonna say, wait a minute.
We wish.
Hold on.
Oh my
Wait.
God. Oh my God. Yes, so being a superwoman and doing all the things that we're talking about and being strong and being vulnerable, as I said, they don't go together because one is a survival skill and the other one is a relationship skill.
What do you mean?
If I have learned to be strong from the things that have happened to me, usually the bad things, the way I was taught to behave, the way I was taught to endure, the way my feelings may have been invalidated, that is a survival skill or a survival strategy,
Mm.
right? So the
Mm-hmm.
cape is a survival strategy. When we talk about trauma, we talk about being in survival mode.
Right.
So if I've had to be strong to survive, that means that I've had to shut down and disconnect parts of myself in order to do that. And one of those things is vulnerability. Does this make sense?
Yes, it's getting there.
So let me explain it like this. As a superwoman, okay, pre-superwoman, young child, and I'm raised by a superwoman with a cape who's strong, who's
Mm-hmm.
endured. How will she likely respond to my emotions, my challenges, my very fragile needs, my tendency to cry when things don't go my way? How will she likely guide me on how I'm showing up with all of these big emotions and all of the ways that I'm pulling on her, and I need to be seen and I need to be known and pay attention to me because that's what all children need.
I don't
I'm
think she'll
very
be able to show
sensitive.
up.
How do you think that? I mean, and this is for anyone who may be watching live. If as a superwoman, and superwomen are taught to play roles. When we talk about, don't talk about what goes on in this house. You too loud, you too big, too small. Don't get too big for your britches. But at the same time, you got to protect this family at all costs.
Mm.
All of that is teaching the child that it's not safe to be authentic, one, and that there is no room for your feelings. The world don't give a damn if you cry. I was told that. The world don't care if you cry.
Yep, same here. And I think it would also make that parent uncomfortable if they're not used to their own emotions, seeing their emotions from somebody else. They wouldn't know how to relate. Yeah, because they shut off their own emotions.
And that means that they're not vulnerable. They're emotionally unavailable.
Okay, it just clicked. Got it. It just clicked.
That's exactly that is the making of a superwoman.
Mm,
That's our origin story.
there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's it's rooted the way that I see it, it's rooted in invalidation.
Meaning because parent, the mom, for example, would have invalidated their child.
That's the making of a superwoman. So
Mm,
you're crying, you're whining, you haven't well, it's called whining, okay? So you doing what all children do. Um, you're Black and you're a woman, you gotta be twice as better. Like
yeah.
this average that you're doing, this you don't know how to do this particular assignment. You supposed to know that before I come home, you 8, 9, 10, you supposed to take the meat out. Everything's supposed to be clean. You
Lord.
got responsibilities. You don't
Yes.
get to really think like a child. You have to think like an adult. Well, the parentification.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that the perspectives, the needs, the voice of the child become invalidated. It don't matter what you want. It don't matter what you feel. It don't matter what you need. This is what we doing. This is how we doing it. And don't talk back.
You know what? I was watching this video clip of Karamo. He's a
Yeah.
talk show host. Yeah, I just
Mhm.
happened to come across it. It's pretty good. I never watched a full episode, but the clip that I watched, she looked like she could have been a child, maybe 19, and she had her mom. And you could tell that this was the first time that her and her mom had a platform where it was somewhat like an even playing ground because they're on
Mm,
national TV. And
that's right.
the daughter was crying, and the first of all, let me back up. Mom screaming at her, just going off. And then the daughter said, "This is what I'm talking about, Mom. I feel like whenever we have these conversations, you're just talking at me. We don't have conversations." And then she starts crying. And then the mom yelled at her,
That's right.
"Oh, you're just being sensitive." Shut that all the way down. And then her daughter just said, "See, this is what I'm talking about," and told her to stay in her place. I'm the mom.
Yep. I bet that a lot. I've seen plenty of clips on the internet with talking about Black moms and the way Black moms talk and how they do things. And a lot of us can
Woo!
relate because Black parents, particularly Black moms, they take on this role of being infallible. Like they don't make mistakes. I'm always right. And if you question me being right, then you're wrong.
And then it's seen as disrespect.
It's and that is how they maintain control
Mm,
at all costs, which ultimately is extremely invalidating because they don't respect boundaries.
no.
There is no, and typically respect is just one way. The
What's the
adult.
others?
The adult is to be respected. The
Oh,
child is not seen as having rights. The child is not seen as having um, the right to have right to assert themselves because asserting oneself is seen as disrespectful, even though it is a natural part of what is supposed to happen in child development.
mm-hmm. Exactly. So, anyone, if you want to share your story or if you have a question for Sarita, just put it in the chat respectfully. Put it in the chat, and we're just gonna keep going. And if something resonates with you, please, we want to hear from you all as well. Drop it in the chat. So, okay, so Sarita, let's go back to when you talked about the vulnerability and how it does not show up. So that's the same as emotional guardedness. So when somebody puts their emotional walls up and avoids their true feelings and the vulnerabilities, how does that show up in relationships? Because we already see how it can show up with the parent.
This is a great question, because the reason why we're even talking about hyper independence and being strong is because it absolutely contributes to relationship dysfunction and relationship issues.
Mm,
So, you asked about the genesis or the origin of this need or desire, even this identity to be strong in relationships, the same as we just talked about how it happens in parent child relationships, in our interpersonal relationships or romantic relationships. It means that you are showing up with just a fraction of who you are. You're showing up with your role and your cape, and you know how to do things and you know how to make things happen. And because you're so self sufficient and self reliant, it is not uncommon for you to attract predators who recognize all that you bring and don't respect none of what you are. So the narcissists that everybody's talking about, the manipulators that we like to label, we do not recognize, and many superwomen, especially Black women, aren't taught to compartmentalize the cape, because there's nothing wrong with the cape. We bring the cape and we actually operate through the superwoman in our relationships. So we're doing self saving, helping, over giving, over functioning, being overly responsible. We don't know how we feel because we've been taught and we've been conditioned and we've
shut
been
it
told many
down.
times that your feelings don't matter, that don't nobody want to talk about no feelings, don't nobody want to hear it. And because we've been invalidated so much, and this is the thing that I think is hard to hear, and it was definitely hard for me to understand in my own life, in my own relationship with my mother, that I would unintentionally invalidate others in my life, creating this
Mm,
cycle. So if you come to me and tell the truth, because we be talking about, I need a man who is emotionally intelligent and he know his emotions, and then as soon as he shows some emotion, you be like, I want cuss because we on YouTube. But you be like, I don't feel safe and protected around him. He's acting feminine. He's sassy. And I'm not saying there ain't no feminine and sassy ones out there. I'm saying that we do not know how to deal with people when they are extremely vulnerable, because we are not vulnerable with ourselves. And
so
that's
that
why they call us masculine. Go
so
ahead.
that goes back to what I had said earlier about us as children when we're staying saying what we want, our needs and wants to our parent, and they shut it down. So in turn, we shut the same thing down, even though we're still wearing our cape and
N-
fixing and being a build-a-boo.
That is exactly
Mm.
what we do. And here's the thing.
Wait,
Two
excuse me.
things happen.
Anyone listening, if this resonates, put build-a-boo in the chat. Someone type it for me, please, so I can stay on course with this conversation. Because let's keep it real, we all have had these build-a-boos, and sometimes I think it's so subtle. I don't even think we realize it.
Mm. Well,
I
here's the
don't.
thing. I want to say a few things about this, because one, if we have a cape and we recognize that we've been taught to suppress our emotions, we have to succeed despite obstacles and limitations. These are the dictates of the superwoman, okay? And if this is how we do, one, we ignore our own feelings, our own intuition. We ignore the ways that we feel betrayed and ignored and invalidated when people cross our boundaries. That right there alone can make us a target, or we ignore red flags. That's number one. Number
Mm-hmm.
two, when it comes to these build-a-boo relationships, because we've been taught that our worth comes from what we do, We
Mm.
function in relationship like it's a damn job, like it's a to-do list, like all of the things. And here's the deal. If I'm taught to be a superwoman, who am I if I don't have nobody to save?
Oh, so
How
it's like
can
we
I?
get. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
Go
hon.
ahead.
So it's like we get validation from, even though we complain about having to build a boo, but we still complain about doing it, but we still get that validation from
You
being
still get
present.
the validation from it. And if you're not aware of your trauma, and this is why I did create the Break the Cycle of Toxic Relationships in 5-day challenge that's going on right now. You need to show up for day 4, because we don't recognize how we're contributing to the patterns, to the manipulation, and the ways that we are being manipulated. Do people manipulate us for our strength? Absolutely, because they want to use our strength and our capacity to endure for their benefits. They want you to be strong so you can keep working and using that strength for them.
But in turn, with us having these build-a-boos, while we're looking for the validation, that is manipulation too, right? Low key,
It is very
high
much
key.
manipulation. It
Yeah.
is very much manipulation, because when we are playing the role of a superwoman, what are we doing? We're sacrificing and giving and doing and helping and solving people's problems and coming to the rescue. And sometimes we might even do things without them even asking, because, we're so empathetic and we're so caring, even though they didn't ask for it. But let somebody act like they don't appreciate it. All hell is going to break loose.
Like,
You
sir,
using me, I'm going to pull up all my receipts about what you ain't did and how much I'm giving. Why? Because you had hidden motivations. You were expecting something in return that
yeah,
you did not disclaim or offer consent to. And so when people don't act the way that you think they should based on what you give, even though they never asked for it, even though you're doing it with a hidden intention, then you feel like somebody done did you wrong.
absolutely. Especially when we take pride that we provide help. We're already 2 steps ahead before they even think about it. Not
Well,
recognized for it, and then that's where we lose it. Up, you're mute.
so here's the thing with
Hmm.
the when you talk about the giving and the doing and why we do it. I think I lost my train of thought because so many things was flowing through my head. What was the last thing you said?
About being 2 steps ahead, 3 steps
Oh,
ahead. Hmm.
yes. So part of being a superwoman, and I talked about like that parentification,
Hmm.
is that we are taught to think 2, 3 steps ahead. That's part of being a superwoman, is
Hmm.
that we always have to. First of all, we do it because this is what we've been taught. And if I'm capable and I'm doing things and I manage everything, and low key, a lot of us have high functioning anxiety. So I
Yeah.
am worried about things that I cannot control. I'm worried about things that I can't predict, because listen, I grew up in an experience where things weren't predictable or I had to be responsible. So thinking 2, 3, 4 steps ahead, one, that helps us to be more effective. It helps us to feel more in control and to manage our anxiety about things that are happening in life and in our relationships. And people who are predatory, they love it because they use that. They can manipulate it in all kinds of ways, including if I'm using some of the manipulation tactics like devaluation or discard. I already know that you have a tendency to problem solve, and you are going to be stuck and confused figuring out what I'm doing, why I did, or what you did wrong.
Mm.
Thus, it deepens the trauma bond.
I'm glad you said that. That's another video I need to put, because we talked about a trauma bond maybe 2 years ago. Do you remember that video? We've done so many. I'm gonna put that in there. Unless we do a trauma bond 2.0, the reboot.
Oh, yeah, because I have a
Okay.
lot more to say about that. I have a lot. And for those of you, if you want some trauma bond information right now, you can still join the I Break the Cycle challenge or the Break the Cycle in 5 days challenge and watch all the replays from the last 3 days. And you can still come today because I'm going to do a review. So you haven't missed a thing. And then we can do a podcast and unpack it all. I would love to.
Okay, sounds good. Let me just drop a link in the chat right now. There we go. But y'all need to finish listening to us and then click on the link that I just dropped.
Oh,
Okay.
yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Stay tuned for this. It's just getting good.
Right. Okay. So does this sound familiar? I don't need any new friends. I have enough girlfriends. I don't need any more girlfriends. Does that sound familiar to anybody in the chat? I have all the friends that I need. Oh, I'm not going to trust him and tell him how I really feel. And we
Mm.
have this distrust of others. We have this, even though we, quote unquote, we love our partner, but we still have that level of that unspoken distrust. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how at times we question people's motives, or this was big, the reliability.
Mm.
I heard you go, I know.
So I didn't want to cut you off. So distrust is a big one for many super women and strong women because, um, well, distrust is rooted in our childhood experiences
Yes.
and things that we've experienced, things that we may have witnessed in our family of origin, or even just being told, because I know I was, that don't trust nobody, that
You
you
better not
take
have
care of
another
yourself.
woman in your house.
uh, there are there's rules, spoken and unspoken, about
Yes.
how and why it's important not to trust. How basically you need to be self-reliant. That if you trust someone, then you open yourself up for heartbreak and disappointment. And then they wonder why so many superwomen and Black women struggle with being vulnerable. And now here's another side of that is a lot of our hyper independent or super women or strong women don't trust because it's a requirement for the cape, but also it's a defense from me having to actually be vulnerable. So it's a way that I really
Mm.
am avoiding being hurt by not letting anyone in.
So it's like in football, you see the runner coming and you just block them before they make a touchdown. You just cut it off before it even, yeah.
See, of course you would, because I know you love sports, use your sports references, and it makes a whole lot of sense. And that's exactly what
Yeah.
defenses are. We're talking about how in I have not seen this data anywhere because I don't know if anyone has ever done the work, but it is my belief from all of the women that I've worked with, all of the strong Black women, that
Mhm.
our attachment styles are more disorganized.
Can you
And I'm not
explain
saying
that for people about the
yes.
disorganized?
Yes, and I don't mean all of us. I do think there is a significant portion. So, with attachment styles, briefly, attachment style basically is the way that you connect in relationships. It's your bonding blueprint, and it happens in the first 3 years of life. It can change, you can grow, you can evolve. There's some, dissenting evidence or beliefs around that, but yes, you can change and you can grow. Ultimately, the goal is to have secure relationships where
Yes.
both parties in the relationship they're secure within themselves. They are emotionally available. They are open. They can communicate. They can problem solve, deal with conflicts. Now, you have your insecure, which is I need a relationship. I crave it. I want to have it. I feel anxious when you're not around, just like the child when they're in public and they want to explore a little bit. But where's mommy? Is mommy safe? I got to make sure mommy's close by. Anxious. And then you have your avoidant,
Avoidant.
which is, listen, mom left me for 3 days straight. I ain't seen her. When she come back, I'm gonna be like, what's up? That means that when the baby sees a mom, after there has been a excuse me, I should have muted. Excuse me. After there's been a rupture, meaning the bond, there was not the consistent need being met of attention and time and care. And if that bond is disrupted, the defense reaction is, I don't need relationships. It doesn't matter. I won't let myself get hurt again. I'm not going to let anybody get close.
That
So
lone wolf.
in the research that was done, when the mother came back after the child was left alone with a stranger, the secure child would run toward the mother or reach out. The avoidant child is just like, oh, you're back, and they just keep doing what they're doing.
Mm.
And that child becomes an adult where they might want to engage in relationships, but when they're triggered, they're going to flight, they're going to flee. I'm out of here. I'm going to make some excuses. I'm going to say that you're too needy. I'm very emotionally guarded. The more your attachment style of being needing so much from me and wanting to be close, it's triggering. It's triggering all my trauma, all my stuff. And I got to go because you're doing too much. I need my space.
So the more that avoidant pulls away, the anxious becomes a lot more clingy. Then they're triggered because their anxious attachment is being flared up. And then the avoidant. So we're just triggering each other like a ping pong game, just back and forth, back and forth.
We are triggering one another, and
And
which
that
is why these relationships have so much drama, which is why
stress.
these two types are attracted to each other, and which is why they say about 50% of the population has some attachment injuries. And so understanding that these two types, so when you think about the superwoman traditionally probably have more of the anxious attachment style, but it is
Hmm.
my belief that because she's taught to save and help and do, but at the same time, she's
Yeah,
also taught,
avoidant.
hmm?
I thought she'd be more avoidant.
Look at, just look at the nature of what you've seen, heard, and experienced about superwomen in relationships. How much
This,
they give. See, there's a difference between, now let me break this down. The giving and the doing, those are traits that would be considered or associated with the anxious. Like, I'm really
mhm.
needing a relationship, I'm sacrificing myself. She's doing all of that, and yet she's emotionally guarded.
Mm.
And this is why I do believe that a lot of superwomen are disorganized, because they want relationships, they can crave it, they can seek it out, they can cling, they can hold on, and then they can flip. They can flip emotionally, or flip meaning all the way to the end of the spectrum where they're done.
Wow.
They can still be in the relationship, but we're talking about, just because two people are in a relationship don't mean they have a bond, an emotional bond.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because you can
And,
see the lack of intimacy. Oh, look
and
who dropped in.
and that is exactly what I mean when I say, "Hi, hello, beautiful Robin." That's
Robin.
exactly what I mean when I say disorganized, because so many superwomen are in relationships where there is no emotional intimacy. There is no bonds. You could be in the relationship, but there's no deep connection.
Mm-hmm.
There's no mutual respect or support. There's no real problem solving. There's drama. But those are my thoughts. Now, do I think that a lot of superwomen have attachment injuries? You got to.
Yeah, I would definitely say that for sure. So that's another topic we can go into as well. These injuries in the very near future. So let's talk about perfectionism and these high standards that we put on ourselves. We kind of touched on it earlier, but let's talk about the judgment that comes with the perfectionism.
So, from my experience, a lot of superwomen are driven by perfectionism. We are taught that you got to be perfect. You don't if you have to be if you're told that you are black and you have to be twice as better,
Mm.
automatically that creates a foundation for perfectionism. We are taught that we have to perform, that we are judged by our performance. And if we're going to add in racism and talk about that for real, I mean, racism is the ultimate driver, I think, for a lot of us to be perfectionists because, how we look and what they going to think and how we dress. Because
Mm.
it's like, culturally we're fighting against all of these stereotypes and perceptions about ourselves as black women, as black people. So all of the stuff about black women, and then all of the baggage that comes with just being in a black body, including their perception that you are subhuman because you are in a black body.
Isn't that something?
So that's a lot to work through, and then in within the family, and having to perform and succeed despite all of the things that have happened to you, that will happen to you. And we ain't even going to talk about the trauma that happens in the home that you told to be quiet about, or it didn't happen, or ignore it.
I was just going to say that how my past experience, without going into too much detail, but perfection, one of the many ways that perfectionism showed up was silence. And yeah, the perception, that was the benchmark. So the way to do that is keep your mouth shut and have that persona, that perfect family persona.
That is very true. And, I do think that a lot of super women are taught to self silence. We are taught to be quiet. We are taught that our voices do not matter. And in my case, I absolutely, and I said this to you before, that my mom cut my tongue out, and my healing work was to piece it back together and
Mm,
to make sure that I protected at all cost.
I'm telling you.
Because you can't speak up, you can't speak out, you can't speak against, don't talk about, and then don't even bring up,
Oh
don't
no.
even question. So the silence has been weaponized, which is why so many superwomen don't talk about the things that have happened to them. And to make it so bad, because we have a culture that has expected us to be quiet, people will come with some form of, well, that was in the past. Well, you just need to let it go. They will shame. And Barbara
Yes.
says revisionist history. Absolutely.
Wow. I hear that. So you know what I do for a living. For those who don't know, I'm a mental health advocate in my professional career. And so when I go out and speak, I'm open and sharing my story, some of my past lived experiences. And at the end, people will always come up. And Sarita, they've come up to you before too. Remember one of the events we've had in the past when you've come to my work event, and someone will share their story and they will always say, I thought I was the only one. I thought it was just me and my household. And then when one person says something after I do, then it's like a floodgate just opens up. And some people, which I love it, they'll say it out amongst us in the crowd where we are, which I absolutely love. And they always say that they feel lighter because they've been holding on to that, whatever that was for so long, because that silence has been weaponized. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a symptom of trauma. And this is why I do what I do. This is why I love teaching and group events and having a community, because it really helps people to feel more innocent. It is the trauma
Mm.
that got us believing that we are broken or defective or that we are alone. The isolation that we experience as a result of having been silenced, that is trauma. And so thinking that you are alone, that is just how the trauma is playing out for you. Because the
Mhm.
reality is that you are far. Listen, if you're a member of the human family, then you got some trauma and you got some things that you can work through. We all have it.
We
But
all
some of the
do.
things that we talk about specifically as it relates to like being a superwoman or having to be strong or the pressure or the things that happen in your family of origin, they are very common because it's rooted in our survival. It's how we survived. And so that's part of our intergenerational trauma.
Mm. So that goes into another segue of suppressing the emotions. That would be the same thing, don't you think?
The same thing,
Yeah.
the same thing as what?
The same thing as far as being perfect. Because
Oh,
if we're,
yeah,
yeah, because we have this shroud of being perfect, but we're still eating our emotions, our needs, and our wants. That is the suppressing of the emotions as well.
absolutely. And the reason why I wanted to talk about hyper independence and perfectionism and these other aspects is because people may not realize the connection and the expectation of having to be a superwoman or a strong black woman at the core of that
Mm-hmm.
is perfectionistic, because if you are expected to be strong despite limitations, if you're expected to succeed despite obstacles, if you're expected to resist dependency, that is perfection, because those traits are not rooted in what it means to be a human and a human that actually needs connection in other people. And because we are taught these things about being a superwoman, about being a strong black woman, we don't realize how these beliefs and this identity is creating a lot of the issues that we have in our relationship. The cape is really at the root of why so many of us feel alone and isolated.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying? So, this
I
loneliness,
do.
this I'm different, because you've had to be different to survive. Whereas some people have the luxury of being fragile and feminine and resting in her femininity and
Her
being the
tears.
damsels in distress and being saved. You ain't have that luxury. You didn't. So this is why we feel like something is wrong. Well, this is a result of the things that have happened throughout the generations that we are dealing with. And not just dealing with, many of you, I will say all of us, have a responsibility to heal.
Mm-hmm. Robin said, "Tell him, Sarita."
Thank you. Love you.
So before we continue, anyone listening now, I definitely want you to look in the lower right hand corner and hit that subscribe button. So, and make sure and press the notification bell. It's a really cool way of supporting the channel. And then you'll also know when Sarita and I come on again to continue this conversation, because she's reloaded. So anything
Oh,
we
yeah.
talked about, the benchmark has been placed up.
Listen.
I, I was gonna save this for last, but you know what? I'm going to shake the hornet's nest.
Mm, I love it.
Let's talk about being controlling in our relationships.
Mm. Don't y'all click off now. Don't y'all dare.
Yeah. Robin said, boom. Yes, let's talk about the control. How it, you know what, before we do that, if I can go back a little bit, when you talked about how each of us are wearing our capes and not showing up, I just thought about it how, as children, we're taught from our parents on being perfect. So then you have this parent in a container of being perfect who's raised a child being in a container of perfect. But then the child, even if as an adult child and the parent, they really don't even know each other. Ouch. Yeah.
Girl, I don't even know if you want to bring that up. Do you want me to respond to that? Or you just want me to shake my head and say, okay?
No, I'll respond to it. Go for it. Yeah, so I can plug in my power cord. Go ahead. Exactly, Robin. Ouch. But go ahead. Yeah, I
That,
want to hear what you have to say about that. Because that's not a good feeling at all.
first of all, that speaks to your awareness because so many don't even realize that they're in relationships with their parents and they don't even know each other. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about how the cape interferes with relationships. So if I've raised my child or my children or my daughter to play a role, to be perfect, to make things happen, to take care of herself, then I've taught her how to fit into the costume of the Superwoman.
Mm,
I've not helped my child to develop and to understand who she is at her core. I'm not celebrating authenticity. As a matter of fact, I might not even respect authenticity because authenticity is going to teach you that you have to set boundaries, to speak up for yourself, and to do the very things that I label disrespectful. And so, how do we
exactly.
manage this? How? It's a trauma response and it's called idealization and it leads to fantasy bonds.
Mm,
So, so many super women, they have a fantasy relationship with their mama. It's not based on anything real, meaning like authenticity and us being able to have difficult conversations and deal with conflict and talk about the things that have happened in our past. That takes usually healing.
right.
So if I don't know my parent or my parent don't know me, we have a fantasy bond, and y'all can look that up. That is the actual term. It's a fantasy.
You all
It
put
feels like a
fantasy in the
relationship.
chat.
Hmm?
I was telling everybody to put fantasy in the chat if that sounds familiar.
It is a fantasy
Yeah.
because, and that is, and here's how it relates to what we're talking about romantic relationships.
Mm,
Because of what we've experienced with being shaped and conditioned to have a cape, what we just described that happens in childhood, we call that conditional love. So I'ma love you when you playing the role. I'ma love you when you doing what you're supposed to, when you remember to take the meat out the refrigerator and you taking care of your siblings. But the minute that you try to be an individual in my house where I pay bills, we're gonna have a problem.
big problem.
So so that child in that scenario learns that, oh, I'm only loved when I play the role that people want me to play, when I'm giving and helping and doing and sacrificing. And so when she grows up, she has this fantasy bond with her mother. And, everything is good because she's the good girl. She takes care of the family. She anticipate mama's needs or the family needs. And she don't really buck up. She might do a little, yeah, 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 but she going to be back. She going to be fine because she's taught ultimately mom is right. And it's the goal. You take care of your family, fill in the blank with whatever your story is.
Mm-hmm.
But she's conditioned to be loved conditionally. So she grows up, she gets into an adult relationship, and she's used to playing a role. I'm used to over functioning. I'm used to giving. I'm used to not really being appreciated. My needs, I don't really have any. I'm fine. I'm good. Don't worry about it. I make it happen. Yeah, I'm tired, but I don't look like what I've been through. I do what it do. So you're
Mm-hmm.
showing up in the relationship creating fantasy bonds and fantasy relationships that are not based on authenticity, communication, understanding, and you are absolutely giving and receiving conditional love.
It sounds very transactional to me.
That's exactly what it is.
Mm,
When we talk about these roles, when we talk about hyper independence and perfection, uh, the cape, the superwoman, the strong black woman syndrome, the relationship she is having is transactional. And this brings me to this is why you need to show up for the Break the Cycle of Toxic Relationship Challenge tonight, because If you're having transactional relationships based on your trauma, based on even what you don't know or having to be strong, you will attract people who have transactional relationships. And that is the specialty of the narcissist. It's all
Mm.
transactional. It's all based on fantasy. Isn't that what the love bombing phase is about? Creating the fantasy, the illusion of love and care and twin. Where have you been?
Twin, where have you been?
And that's why we love it. That's why we love it. Because if we don't have it, we want it. We
Yeah,
want
we
that.
chase it and crave it. So this is why it's
That's
important. Oh,
you
go
said,
ahead.
wait, hold on. You said she crave it. And this
You-
is exactly why I say she's not avoidant. But go ahead.
Ah, okay. I see you.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Just got it loud and clear. But this is important why to get to know yourself beyond that surface level, because everything you just said was a cycle from childhood, repeats itself in adulthood, even with our friends. And we just go through life sometime just in autopilot, and we don't even I know I didn't realize it, that I was recreating the same cycles, the same generational cycles from when I was younger, and how it showed up in my career and relationships for sure. Yeah.
Yes. I was
So,
very controlling. Go ahead.
yep, I was about to say, let's shake that bee's nest and talk about this control and how it shows up. I feel that control is fear based,
Hmm.
because if it doesn't come out the way I want it to look or how I want it to feel, let me put a stronghold on it so that I can at least navigate the outcome.
Perfectionism. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Ouch. Wait a minute. Why is it my keep talking. My I thought my
And so, yes, this perfectionism, this expectation of how listen, we have to be in control. Things got to look good. Of course,
yeah.
don't talk about what goes on in this family because we have to have a certain image, that brand management that I talk about. And that perfectionism is the root of why we control. And that control can take on all kinds of forms. I was very controlling, and would I have called myself controlling? No. I know what's best. I'm smart. I'm smarter than you. I see what you're doing and you're not doing it right, or you could be doing this, or you should do it like that. You did that wrong. See, we don't call it control, we call it helping, honey. We helpful. And if we over giving, doing, over functioning, over making things happening, we are trying to control the relationship or to control the outcome. That is control. When you are overdoing, and it can look like micromanaging your partner's actions or even your children. So constantly overseeing and directing because you know how to do it, right? And please believe, I want you to listen to this list and recognize how all of this is the opposite of authenticity. So if I'm
Mm,
controlling your actions, if I'm setting realistic expectations for you, it's because I set them for myself and it's because they were set for me. So this impossibly high standards that superwomen have been given, that we are supposed to meet these expectations without fail, and if you fail, it's a problem because it means that you are a failure. See, superwomen don't have the distinction between I failed and I'm a failure. It's one and the same. This is why we can't tolerate it. We can't take it. And some superwomen recognize this. I mean, not consciously, but we will put ourselves in a box and we won't even try. We will sabotage
mm,
anything
that's real right
where
there.
we absolutely aren't sure we can positively succeed. That includes life and relationships.
Mm,
So that emotional suppression, so avoiding vulnerability and controlling emotional expression, It's all about control because you've been taught that you have to maintain a facade of strength and invincibility. If you ain't trying to control others, you are always trying to control yourself.
Ooh, the suppression. Okay, it just clicked. Yep, it just clicked.
Mhm. And taking on all responsibilities. So, assuming control over all tasks and responsibilities, big, small, to prevent any perceived shortcomings from their partner. And sometimes I know I have felt this before where I felt like I was going to be judged if I didn't look perfect, taking on everything. But it was me judging myself, holding myself
Mm,
to this standard, putting on all this pressure.
that resonated a lot when you said that we put our own selves in a container.
The Superwoman is the container.
Damn.
That's a contain. It's dressed up as a costume, but it's a container, and it contains. And when you contain, you are limited in who you think you can be and what you can express and what you can do because the Superwoman is a role container.
Hmm. So this makes me think of the struggle of part of this. Wait. Your face said everything. Tell me what went through your brain just now.
The whole identity of a Superwoman, unfortunately, in relationships will make her or can lead her to be attracted to the projects.
Ooh.
The Superwoman is designed to endure struggle.
Hmm.
If I've been taught all of these qualities about how I'm supposed to suppress and help and save, I can't be who I've been taught to be in a relationship with a healthy person because they don't need me to do anything. They want to know how I feel. They're expecting me to respect their feelings. They want to talk about the problems in the relationship. All you want to do is talk about, I got shit to do. So
Hmm.
the struggle love is a setup. And it's a setup for the Superwoman to act out all the things, our traumas, all of the ways that we've been taught that our worth comes from what we're doing and how we're doing it and how effective we could do it and how helpful we are. And we are seeking ultimately, and I don't really talk about this part a lot in public because so many of y'all superwomen, we can't hear it and can't handle it until we do, is that we have experienced so much unappreciation and invalidation for all that we do and for all that we give, that we are starving for that validation that every human being needs.
Mm.
We need it.
Yeah,
And guess who else know you need it too?
that
The
toxic part.
narcissist. They know.
They
They
do.
weaponize it and they love it. And do you know why? Because they need validation even more than you do. That's what the whole love bombing phase is all about. I talked about this on Monday. They pretend to be the twin. They get to know all of your needs. They recognize how thirsty you are and how much you crave and how much you want this soulmate and how much you want this bullshit you done saw on some TV show about what love is supposed to be. I don't know.
Mhm.
And so they pretend to be all of that to get you to drop your guard because you are hungry for that validation. I'm going to give it to you so I can snatch it back so that then you will continue to seek for that validation from me. And as you do, I get the validation I need.
That's that trauma bond.
That is the trauma bond. That is the essence of so much struggle of. It's that give and take, that drama where both are seeking for that validation and to be the star role of, um, You did something to me. You didn't give me this.
Mm-hmm.
Playing
And that,
out the drama.
and that goes back to that cognitive dissonance because I've done this before, craving that love bombing feeling. So then when it doesn't feel like that love bombing, what was it? The discard or the
This
is it
love bombing, devaluation, which is all the
devaluation?
criticizing, and then the discard.
Right. And going back to that love, how that felt with the love bombing, but of course not knowing that it is the love bombing. Oh, I just had an aha moment. How about this? Ah, mm. So when we spend that in this container of the love bombing, right? So unbeknownst to family and friends, our relationship would have gone into the devaluation or the devaluation. But then you think about it, when we're around our friends and family, they still think everything looks good because they see the facade of the love bombing, right? Even though we know we're probably going to go have an all knockdown, drag out fight later. But then we protect that person to our friends and family. So then when the relationship is over and then they're shocked, but we didn't know. But in reality, like we going back to that perfectionism, I just see how it's all weaved into each
It
other, all
yeah,
cut from the same fabric.
it
Because we
is
don't want our
all
relationship, we don't want our toxic relationship looking like it's toxic and we really shouldn't be with that person. So you know what? Going back to that silence of the perfection, we'll just keep quiet.
well,
Ah,
I would say, honestly, I think a
ah,
lot of super women, they are protecting their own image. That goes back to the control.
ah.
I wanna protect how other people see me. I don't want them to know. I don't want them to
Yes.
think different of me. I don't want to be shamed. I don't wanna be judged. So, it might look like I'm protecting him, but I'm protecting me, usually from my vulnerable feelings and because I don't wanna deal with the backlash. Or if we get real, 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 it's because I know this is some bullshit, but I don't wanna be alone. I would rather be in this than to be by myself.
And we're going to talk real, 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 real about the investment that was put into that relationship.
Mm.
Even if it was toxic, but there is an investment. I'm going to show them because 20% of him, he's usually a monster 80% of the time. But this 20% I'm going to hold on to and I'm going to let everybody see that 20% because we're that Instagram couple. Knowing damn well it is Tina and Ike.
Well, and you know what? For some, Tina and Ike has been normalized. So,
Yeah.
especially if they've grew up with it, seen it, experienced it, if they've been in the relationship for a long time. And so when we are, and this is why it's so important for us to understand trauma and to understand the effects because being in these kinds of toxic relationships, the struggle love, the narcissist, the trauma bond, is I learn how to cope by not coping, by
Oh,
being in denial, making excuses, minimizing their behavior, giving them the benefit of the doubt, questioning yourself. But and here's a big one. This is a cognitive dissonance, meaning the way that you think about it. One of the survival strategies, because it's hard being in these relationships. You got to become a little crazy to be able to survive and deal with crazy. So what you do is you start focusing your attention on the positive things, the intermittent reinforcement, the things that you perceive as good, and then you minimize, you pay less attention.
yep.
You don't give it as much energy even though it's happening, even though it's hurting, and that just is how human beings survive. But it's at a cost.
And I read somewhere that that goes back to childhood as well. If you live in a tumultuous, chaotic home with look at your face. Yeah, You have a parents, caregiver that's been a monster 80% of the time, but we're going to hold on to that 20%, just like you said, to feel safe, to survive, to get us over. We're going to hold on to that just to survive. And just like Robin said earlier, like survival isn't meant to be long term. It gets us where we need to, but not for a lifetime, not for consistent relationships back to back to back.
And it goes back to what I said about fantasy bond.
Oh,
That's a part of being in a fantasy bond where I focus my attention on the things that feel good and ignore or invalidate. Because, see, I learned to do with the situation what I've done to myself. Because in
mm,
order to be a superwoman, I've had to learn how to invalidate my own feelings because I
yeah.
got to play this role. It don't matter what you feel. It don't matter what you want. You got to save, you got to help, you got to do. And so what happens when you get into a relationship and craziness starts happening, you just invalidate yourself once again. That becomes a part of your survival strategy. You're not alone. And your trauma is not your fault. Take a deep breath. If you're watching this, if you ain't clicked off yet, because I can't see how many's on here. But I want you to know your trauma is not your fault. And none of what we are talking about is meant for you to blame yourself or weaponize this information against yourself or for you to feel like you've done something wrong. Baby, you survived. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you can learn how to thrive. Everything that we're talking about right now, these are called relationship strategies. These are ways that we've learned to relate, even though we have layers of trauma.
Mm. And don't you think it's time that we start unlayering? I just made that word up.
Yes.
Let's start to unlayer.
That's my life's work. What you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. And this is why, again, you need to come to the Break the Cycle Challenge tonight because, oh, this is a good plug, good time. Um, you need to come to the Break the Cycle of Toxic Relationship Challenge because what all of this means, because we're talking about the ways that we learn to survive, we're talking about the manipulative tactics of narcissists and how the superwoman, which stay tuned because I'm going to be revealing my all of my basically like my framework, my theory on the superwoman that includes a lot of what we talked about and so much more. So maybe we need to do a podcast about that. Um
Mm-hmm.
so understanding that all of these things are not just connected, but they have the same root. And as such, healthy relationships, shall I say, love is a skill. We think it's just an emotion, but there are basically the skills of love. Because if I say in a relationship that I want communication, I want someone who is emotionally intelligent. I want someone who's loyal. I
Mm-hmm.
I want, mutual respect. That takes skills. That means I got to know what I feel. I got to be able to communicate. I have to be able to understand what your feelings are. I have to be able to empathize, assertively listen, recognize my window of tolerance,
Woo!
recognize when you're triggered and you're outside of your window of tolerance, recognize when you're asking for space. I can respect your boundaries and still be in a relationship with you and not take it personally. We just in the beginning, honey. I got to recognize if there's a red flag in this relationship, both for
Mm-hmm.
myself and for you, and be able to deal with it. I have to be able to recognize if I'm being gaslit or not, or even recognize the way I'm trying to manipulate and gaslight you because I don't want to face my own feelings. That
Oh
those
my
are
God.
skills. And so many superwomen don't understand that. So you can make the list all you damn want. It is okay. You are allowed to do vision boards and you're allowed to do all that. But at the end of the day, I'm here to tell you with love that love requires relationship skills. You
Mm-hmm.
got to be willing to know who you are and practice and doing the work. And we talk about silencing. Healthy relationships requires assertiveness. So you have to be able to speak up for yourself while also letting the other person speak up for themselves in respect and be able to do the dance that is happy where there's give and take.
Yeah. And we talked about that too. Remember on the phone about, let's just keep it real, ladies, that sometimes we do not listen.
We don't listen a lot.
Yeah. I mean,
Listening
we
is a
just don't.
active listening is a skill. So I'm going to break all of this down. Come to the Break the Cycle Challenge tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, now you go.
I was just about to ask you to say, well, what time is it going to be? People need to know. So may I read a couple of these comments? Let's see. Robin said, we endure, but we're not honest with ourselves. We must stop struggling. That goes back to that struggle love that was in the title. Um, let's see. There was another one. Oh, here it is. Aaron. Hey, Aaron. Just tuning in. Ah, dumped by my boyfriend of 4 months the other day. Sorry to hear that.
No,
Was
I'm not.
I don't
Congratulations.
wait, I don't know the
Reject.
backstory. Let me
I
read the
don't
rest.
even know. Listen, I don't know it either. But I know if anybody is leaving, discarding, saying bye-bye, rejection is protection and redirection. Let me look into the camera. I'm not sorry. Rejection is protection and redirection. So now you can have more peace. Go ahead and finish reading the
Okay,
comment.
so see, now I'm seeing the rest of the sentence. Was seeing huge red flag. Okay, there it is. Red flags, narcissistic traits. So glad I didn't stick around 3 years like I would have in the past. Girl. Same.
Just make sure.
That
And
was a
tonight's
gift.
topic, I'm talking about hoovering because they got plenty of tactics to try to get you back in and be backup narcissistic supply. So be very aware. Come to class tonight, all of you,
Can you tell
because
me
they
the
have
time
plenty
again?
of tactics. Because the narcissist ain't never done. You got to be done with them.
Right. They're never done because they thrive and live off of the supply.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like we're a host. So you're right. We got to cut it off. If
And
not,
and the discard, the breakup for the narcissist is part of the tactics to control and punish.
this man who was a serial cheater, he did a Q&A, a reformed serial cheater.
Mm.
And yeah, and he said that he's it seemed like he's done the work and doing the work, and he realized that he to needed to have multiple women in his mind because he got the thrill of it, but he now knows that it was the validation that he was lacking, or he couldn't validate himself. He didn't know how, and that he was always trying to recreate the, it was a mother wound. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
Okay. And he said that he went to the women because the women said yes, because his mom always said no. And then he said that he didn't even really like the women outside of his wife. It was just something to do, just something to do. And when that woman, when it was old, the discard, he would go on to the next, and didn't even care if there was an overlap whatsoever, because he needed to have that constant line of validation. And if there was crossover, then they were just casualty,
Collateral damage.
collateral damage. Yeah. Yeah. And in his words, he had said, caught up in friendly crossfire. And the host said, what's friendly about this? You're up here breaking hearts. And he said, well, I I will take he was taking accountability for his part. It was a laugh, but he really did take accountability. But then he said, y'all, you ladies may not want to hear this, but some of the women, they took me back is because I knew I could come back. They had me, they let me come back. And he said that there was a part of him that will punish them. It's like, you like me? Well, let me see how far I can press. Let me see how far I can keep being toxic and just being a monster. Crazy. It was wild to listen to. So that's what he said. I'm gonna punish her.
I can appreciate his insight and awareness now of where he was and being able to articulate it in that way and hopefully help others who might be in a situation.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I was thinking as you were telling that story. One, this is why we must deal with our own trauma, heal our unworthiness and self-esteem, which is rooted in trauma, because like does attract like. But see, the problem is that if we are superwomen out here and we have these wounds, our motivation is different than the narcissist. I'm not saying it's better or worse. See, the narcissist is motivated too, but they are oriented towards power and control. And that means that the victim, and we're talking about women in this case, because women, there's a lot, and I'm not saying women can't be narcissists. I'm saying that the damage that can be done to women and their children when they are in these kinds of relationships where they're being
Mm-hmm.
dominated and abused and sometimes even physically hurt because this person does not know how to control themselves in any way. And more importantly, when you talk about the validation, this is key. This is so important to understand, not just for the narcissist, because the narcissist is addicted to validation.
Yes.
So many superwomen don't understand is that you're addicted to emotional dependency. So you're addicted to the emotional validation that the narcissist gives.
Mm-hmm.
And if you aren't aware of that, then you can find yourself seeking out. You think you saving somebody and doing somebody a favor when in essence you are sacrificing yourself in order to
Yes.
get something from someone who cannot and will not give it to you. Because not only can they not give it to you, they're not giving it to themselves.
Exactly. Exactly. Let me read this comment. It's a good segue from what you just said. Julene. Hey, Julene. She said, what's crazy is the amount of things we allow when it comes to men. When we stop letting stuff continue, we start to change and get better, attract better, learn our value, and demand it from others around us. Thank you for sharing that. That's some good stuff right there. And okay, another comment. She said, I let a man I like go because ultimately we wanted different things. I sacrificed everything and I wanted just to hold on to what he wanted. No more. Good
No
for
more.
you. Good
And
for
thank you
you,
for
Julie.
sharing.
Yeah. That sounds like empowerment.
It
Now
does.
that's a strong Black woman right there, standing in it.
Well, can we say heal
Okay.
or
You're
healing?
right. Because we're leading a soft life. That's
Can we
a
say
healing
healing?
Black woman. Right. Yeah. Because we want to, you're welcome, love. She said, thank you. Yes. Yeah. We want to retire, struggle love. Yeah. For 2024 and beyond, let's retire struggle love. Let's retire the
Okay.
strong Black woman. Let's live this soft life. It's okay. But Sarita, can we do a part 2 to this? Because there's about 7 more points that I'd love for us to talk about, but I think it needs to be done in a part 2.
I would love to. I love, there's nothing I like better. Well, of course, my baby first. Okay, God and my baby and talking about trauma. Okay, those are my three, baby.
Let's do it. If you all want to hear a part 2, put 2 in the chat, please. Yeah, because we can be on until 6 o'clock easily, but we want to make sure we retain this audience. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, you all put 2 in the chat. Before we finish, can you talk about, okay, one more. Elena, she said, I'm going through a 12-year divorce with a narcissist. I have two girls, 9 and 3, and they are my motivation to heal.
Thank you
It's a lot.
for your vulnerability, and thank you for being willing to break the cycle. Thank you for loving on your babies and for hopefully taking care of yourself through the process. And I hope if there's any parts of you that um, if you blame yourself in any way, that you free yourself right now in this moment, and may you be filled with the acceptance and forgiveness of what has happened, and now being willing to take your pain and turn it into purpose, and to use your energy to continue to grow, to elevate, to inspire your children, and to truly be the presence of love in your own life.
Absolutely. Elena, if you go into my videos, it was the last stream I did. It was last week or so. And there is another coach, and she actually coaches women on how to navigate and co-parent with a narcissist. And she's not just talking about it, she's lived it, she's living through it right now. And I mean, talk about a healing woman, because we're not going to do the strong Black woman anymore. But I encourage you, and anybody else who's going through it, just go back. It's the last video I did. I think it was like July 18th or something. But her name is Sarah Komodo, and she just the coaching that she does, it's phenomenal. So and of course with what Sarita's talking about as well. But that's her specialty, because she's going through that now with her two girls. So Sarita, you're already getting some twos. So I guess we are gonna have to do a part 2. Harold, I love you, honey. I've known Harold for like over 40 years. Faye said she was strung along. The man that I was with kept telling me to give up my house and basically choose between him and my grown daughter, who might have cared for me in my later life. That's that manipulation and control
And isolation.
and
Mhm.
isolation.
Mhm.
Misha. Hey, Misha. Oh, okay, Elena, great. She said she's definitely going to do that. So, Sarita, can you talk about your program and the time again, how they can reach you? I'm going to put the link up and give them a little nugget, one last nugget, because they're going to have to get the they're getting the appetizers and the nuggets now, but the meat and potatoes for this challenge week that you have.
Yes, thank you. And so this week is the week of the break the cycle of narcissistic abuse and toxic relationships in 5 days. And you can probably tell that I mean it when I say it. And so today, day 4, the topic, is hoovering. So I'm going to break down how specifically the narcissist hoovers the superwoman, and how we misinterpret, because we can misinterpret some of these red flags for some of the reasons we talked about today. And we can see their gestures as more meaningful than they actually are. And to recognize how these tactics, of course, there's nothing loving about any of these tactics. And so, as you recognize that, you really become more empowered, because, as I said, manipulation tactics are very different from relationship skills. And that is what I'm really going to break down today. And if you're new, you can still join the challenge, because you can watch the replays they'll be up for about the next 7 days. So, join me tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. When you click on the link, all of the time zones are listed. As soon as you enter your information, check your email, because the email confirmation will automatically be sent to you. Check your spam and move it into your main inbox. And I would love to have a breakthrough with you this week.
Now, is there a fee?
The challenge is free. The challenge is free. So come on through. You ain't got no excuse. So yeah, it's free. Come on in. Get this healing, honey, while it's offered for free.
Yeah, Black women, again, we are retiring struggle love, and we're on this healing journey. We're not meant to struggle anymore. Life should be life in this kind of way, right? Not in the surviving. Oh, okay. Elena said day 3 seemed like you broke my oh.
You you had to keep reading. I know what you did.
I'm like, wait a minute. Like, what is going on? She said, day 3 seemed like you broke my whole marriage down in one session. I needed this challenge. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you. Thank you
Y'all,
for showing up.
make sure you hit that subscribe button so you'll be in tune when Sarita and I do our part 2, which would be what, in the next week or two? Next
Yeah,
week?
we could do it next week if you want.
Okay, because we got some tools, so we'll handle that part. So yes, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and yeah, I need you all to come back for the next 7 points that we also have for this strong and stressed. What we're trying to retire. Make sure you like this video. More importantly, if you know a strong and stressed Black woman, or if she's going through some struggle love or recovering from struggle
Mm.
love and is wanting more tools, because we don't want to be stagnant. Let's flow with it. Let's shift. Misha said, I will definitely be there. I'll definitely be there for this, especially going through a divorce with the narcissist myself. Yes, Misha, I've heard your story times. So, I have to do this. You all, healing takes a lot out of you. I know it does with me as well, but if you want some relief just to get away from it, definitely tune into Misha MIO. Misha has been a strong supporter of Black girls getting their shift together. And I've been listening to her for the past almost 2.5 years. So Misha, I'm sending the love back to you all. You all definitely go over and check her out if you want some relief from the healing work. But that doesn't mean two things can exist at the same time. So I need to see you at the challenge as well, everybody.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Got to see
Absolutely.
you at this challenge. There's
And
no
listen, and that don't mean you could go check Misha out right after this, okay? And still
abs-
be ready for the challenge tonight.
you got time because Misha's always going to be there. But the challenge is tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and there's no fee to it. So that's what y'all need to show up. So, any parting words, Sarita, before we do our part 2 next week?
I want to thank you
Thank you,
for
love.
yet another wonderful, insightful, loving conversation, even when we're discussing difficult topics. I thank all of you for being willing to do the work because, listen, we are in this together. And as we heal, we really give others permission to do the same. And so, of course, I want you to show up for the challenge tonight. And I definitely the goal, the intention is for you to take care of yourself because you deserve the love that you give to everyone else. This life is meant for more than just playing a role, struggling, fighting, forcing, trying to forget because of so much that's going through you and what you've been through. And so you deserve to just enjoy this life experience free of the shame and the guilt and the trauma. So be gentle with yourself. Healing is a process. I think it's a lifestyle. And what's most important is that you learn to love your life.
Oh, I love that part. Love your life. And we deserve it because we put so much into pouring into others. I had the realization that and we're talking about vulnerability, so I'll be vulnerable, that has had a long history of pouring into others and not pouring as much into myself.
Yeah.
because that's what I saw growing up. And it's not to blame my parents or what I saw growing up. It's just that was the blueprint. But I also know that I didn't have to stay. Well, I know now I didn't have to stay there. So it's as uncomfortable as the healing is at times, I still stay in it just because I know that the growth on the other end is worth it. But it is kind of fun learning about me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like learning somebody new all over again. So,
And someone that you have longed to meet. That's the real twin. Where have you been? It's your own soul that you've been looking for, not the soulmate out there. It's the soulmate in here. That's the love of your life that you really need.
absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, because we all, no, I want to speak for people as well. Um, when we're in these toxic relationships and we may have fun, but there are times where we feel like this void,
Mhm.
but we can fill that void, but we always fill it with other things. So,
That's it.
um, Sarita, guess what?
What?
You are a black girl that has her shift together, girl.
Thank you. I've earned it. I want to keep it and maintain it. Listen, getting your shit together is not one of them one-time badges, okay? You got to reapply.
Exactly. So, Julene, you're a black girl that has her shift together. Lisi, you're a black girl that has her shift together. Pat, you are a black girl that has her shift together. Elena, Misha, Harold, you get honorary mention. But I love him. Childhood friend for like 40 plus years. So yeah, Harold, you already have your shift together. So yeah, this was good. This was really good. So we'll see you all next week. And in the meantime, continue to keep getting your shift together. And Sarita and I'll see you next week.
Thank you. Love you.
This for the queens, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and Buddha walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun kiss God is heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti, black girl magic, melanin popping, whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, dog.
One more thing I wanted to let you all know. If you do not know, July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. Okay. We talk about what we're going to do and we talk about mental health awareness and how good it feels to be aware. But I really want you all to take actionable steps, including the challenge that Sarita has. But beyond that, I really want you all practice your self-care, whatever that self-care looks like, and make sure let it go beyond just July, okay? Because we're going to be on this earth for however long the we're allowed to stay on this earth. But in the meantime, let's start incorporating this soft life, and how that looks is putting together whatever self-care looks like for you. July is one of my favorite months because it is directed towards minority mental health. So, I mean, everyone can benefit from mental health awareness, but let's just keep it real. Sometimes we, as melanated people, can relate to each other in a different kind of way. It's just specific to us, and that's the beauty. So, I'm going to come back on again and we're going to talk about self-care and how that looks and how you can make it specific for you, because it doesn't have to be perfect. We already talked about perfectionism. It does not have to be perfect, but it can be perfect for you. So I just wanted to put that out there. It's just imperative that we know that we can have a better quality of life instead of just being in survival mode. I've been in survival mode until I started going to therapy, but I had been in survival mode and not even knowing it for decades. And when I finally got a taste of what it feels like to thrive in life, sometimes I'm not gonna lie. Hey Shayna, sometimes when I think about the thriving, because I felt it, and sometimes I'm not gonna lie, I would just cry because it felt so good to not be in survival mode. I'm gonna share a quick story with you. I remember, you know what? We might as well do our quick Thursday. It's a thriving Thursday. So for Mental Health Awareness Month, every day I was going to come on, but my schedule changed. So Monday is going to be Motivational Monday. Tuesday is Toxic Tuesday. Last time I talked about Toxic Tuesday, it was about these toxic ass older people, our elders, and talking about boundaries that we need to have for them as well as ourselves. Wellness Wednesday, Thriving Thursday, and Freedom Friday. So we're going to do a quick Thriving Thursday. I remember I went to my mailbox. I was feeling so good. I was just feeling so grateful. The sky was blue. I just felt really good. And then I started to just cry, but it was tears of joy and happiness because I felt so good. And it made me think from years, decades ago, how I was in survival mode and everything was a heightened awareness. And, I'm always watching my back. I had at the time a horrendous toxic job. And then I'm like, oh my God, I landed into a profession now that I really love and enjoy. Again, I'm a mental health advocate professionally and personally. And I said, oh my God, I am really living a life that, I'm happy. Don't get me wrong, because life is life and right now. But the overall scope of things, I still, not the toxic positivity, but I still try to find a silver lining to just make me feel good. There's things that you can always find a little something that will make you feel good. And you get that nice hit of dopamine of joy. I promise you. So that's why I'm very, very, hey, Quita, what does Quita say? This was wonderful to hear, supporting actionable steps. I've been in and out listening off and on. And as I've been running around or running errands, definitely loving the love I give me. Absolutely, Quita. Absolutely. And one time for the fan. Hey, Matt. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you, hon. So yeah, just like Quita said, it's the actionable steps. Because let's keep it real. We can talk, including myself, we can talk a really good game. If that sounds familiar, put game in the chat right now. We can talk a really good game. We can talk about our self-care. Nothing's wrong with taking bubble baths and the candles. And nothing's wrong with that. Exactly, Misha. Nothing is wrong with that. But you know what? Let's keep it real. Sometimes we can be in financial binds where we can't afford it. And sometimes the candles and the bubble baths, those are all surface and topical. Like, let's try to get a little deeper and let's try to work on some self-mastery. You take yourself everywhere you're at. It costs nothing to look for joy. It just doesn't. And gratitude, So, matter of fact, before we come on next week, think about it. What is, and it doesn't have to be a long list. It doesn't have to be so elaborate. Think of one actionable step. Because especially for people who have children too, you become a better parent. Kids watch. You have to go on my Patreon. When I get that set up, I will give you all some stories from how my past experience, how I grew up. Kids are always watching. And if they see mom in tense, anxiety, high stress, suppressing her emotions, your kids are going to do the same thing too. Kids are sponges. Trust me, they're sponges. And you just think about the conversations you'll have with your kids, just say 10, 20 years from now when they're young adults, and they can give you your accolades like, mom, dad, you were really strong. No, not strong. I really see how you navigated through toxic, whatever situation is. I really admire you for that, as opposed to, why did you stay in these toxic relationships? Yes, Misha, you can find it in the simplest ways. I mean, I'm grateful to talk to you all right now. Life has been lifing for real over on my end. People who know me, they know what's going on. But, you know, um, right before I came on, I went to my go-to, and I learned that in therapy. Have your self-care box. That's one little tip I can give you. Something that makes you happy, something that brings you joy. It can even be something that you can touch. I have a little rug. It feels really good on my feet. If I'm feeling stressed and I just rub my foot across it, it just, for some reason, it calms me down. It doesn't cost anything. It was already here. Remember, we carry ourselves everywhere. So if you all can think of something right now, an actionable step, you can put it in the chat right now. But if not, that's been an edition of Thriving Thursday. Tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be Freedom Friday. What'd you say, Misha? That's exactly why I use TV to escape. It makes me happy and I can laugh for a minute. Absolutely. And that's how I found Misha on her channel on YouTube. You all check her out. That was in the middle of the panini going on. And for those who do not know, I was extremely stressed. At the time, I was in the dental field, and I had to work. Because, see this here? I had to pay a mortgage. I had to go to work. And we're talking about 6 feet. Please, I was 6 inches from people working in their mouths as close as this microphone is to me. And yeah, I wanted to go home and have an escape as well, because now I'm fighting for my life, literally. Yeah, it was scary. Absolutely scary, Misha. Definitely. And yeah, it was not good. And then Panini's my favorite one yet. Yeah. And then I have older parents. It was a mess. So you know what? And I'm not a big TV person at all. People who know me, I may watch 4 hours of TV, but I do catch up with it watching other people's channels. And it gives me an escape. It costs nothing to listen to YouTube. That's some joy right there. Helps work go by. I can say this now because I don't work there. Misha, if you're listening. So when I used to be in the dental field, I had to have my hair covered because, I got a lot of hair. And so I used to have to wear a surgical bonnet. Do you know, I will put my Bluetooth in my ear, and then I will put my bonnet on. So you couldn't see anything because my bonnet was covering my ear. And I hated that job so much. But see, now this is talk about finding joy. I hated that place. It was so toxic. However, listening to her, because she does TV reviews, and she's freaking hilarious. I don't even think she doesn't try to be. She just naturally funny. Some people just talk. She's just funny. And I would listen to her literally from 7:30 in the morning till 4 p.m. See? You can always find the silver lining in something. And that was it. It got me through my days. It just did. So she's laughing. Girl, you don't even know. That helped me so much. Quita said, so glad you pulled out of that space. No man can save you from being in all people's personal space speaking. That's right. You're a nurse. Yeah. Thank you, friend. You helped me as well. Oh, thank Thank you, babe. I appreciate you. Yeah, I got busted once, but we'll talk about that later. Actually, I'll tell you real quick. You had said something. It was about Married at First Sight, and you were talking about Chris or something. When I say I hollered, and my supervisor, she was asking me a question, and I'm looking at her, but I didn't answer because I'm up here laughing at what you said, and you were laughing, and she heard it out my Bluetooth. So there we go. But I'm not there anymore, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, Quita, you know what I'm going through. So yeah, what's going on here at the home front. But anyways, I'm done ranting. I just wanted to share that with you and share some tips. I will see you. She said, my bad. Oh, I hollered. Yeah. Yeah, your ass is funny. Real funny. So, okay. I appreciate you all for hanging in here. This is the after show, after party. But hang in there. I want you all tune in tomorrow. I don't know what time. I don't know. I'm going to play a lot of tennis and pickleball, so we'll see. But I am going to tune in for Freedom Friday. And if you all want to come on with me and we can talk about it, there's always, I love community, especially with Black women, because just like Sarita was talking about, we always have this perfectionism. But if we all just show up as our authentic selves, that's where the healing is. So if you all want to come on with me, you don't have to cam up. If I know you, don't worry about it. You don't have to cam up if you don't want to. But we could just chop it up and talk about. I do have some talking points for Freedom Friday, but okay, now I'm done. You all have a beautiful Thursday. I appreciate all of you. Make sure you keep getting your shift together, and I'll see you all tomorrow.